kind of want to ask you a question, but I'm a bit nervous.
Don't be nervous, Paul.
If you want to get $500,000 to $1 million, you've got to figure out a niche.
£1.3 billion worth of revenue is being driven through TikTok shops.
The value is in the network and the relationships.
You have to keep turning up and you have to keep pushing that forward.
You're the number one most valuable player on the team.
Yeah.
You are. We need you fit mentally, physically at all times. Therefore, you resting and recovering is actually one of the best things you can do for the business.
Yeah.
You're at $500,000. And what were one or two of the big moves you made people-wise that started to really accelerate your growth at that stage?
One of the key elements of empowering a team member is, so what? So what? That makes a better team. Go and jump in it. You're either going to sink or you're going to swim.
So welcome along to this episode of the Grown Up Business Podcast. This is going to be a treat. So if you are an entrepreneur right now and you're perhaps you're an e-commerce entrepreneur, perhaps you're an online entrepreneur, perhaps you're operating, who knows, in the Amazon space even. We're about to have a conversation about how to take a business from £500,000 to nearly £3 million of revenue, how to double it 2 years on the trot, and how to create a global brand that is set to become a category king. And we're going to do all of that in about the next 90 minutes. So there's a lot to pack in. This is a conversation I've been really wanting to have for some time, but it's quite hard to get the two of us in the room at the same time. So I'm really excited to welcome to the show, Mr. Paul Sherratt. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Paul.
Great to have you. So a bit of background for everyone. You're a seasoned sports entrepreneur. Love that, by the way. Founder of gloveglu, which is absolutely blowing up around the world now. How many countries are you in?
55 countries around the world.
Which is awesome. Started from the kitchen table, kind of?
Yes, started as a bit of a side gig actually 12 years ago and then seriously focused on it 3-4 years ago.
Yes, which is the conversation we really want to kind of have today as part of the Growing Up kind of growth brand idea. You created with the Frame It framework, which we want to dive into as well, get stuck into all of that. And just, I really want to talk to you about the journey. So when did you make the decision to take something that was a small but successful business at around $500,000? What was the catalyst that made you go, okay, great, I'm gonna take this big? Like, was there an event? Was there a moment?
Quite simple, actually, really. 2019.
Right.
Turned to my wife. I'm going to be 50 next year, 2020. Had this gloveglu brand that we launched in 2012 as a bit of a side gig.
Yeah.
And the conversation went something along the lines of, we're starting to get some traction. I think maybe we can make this something interesting. I'd had at that stage probably 25 years in sporting goods in and around working with lots of different brands, lots of global brands. So knew the space, knew the industry, knew the marketplace. And the chat was, will you support me? It's probably it is going to mean remortgaging the house and et cetera, et cetera.
That kind of conversation.
Are we going to go for this? Are we going all in to see if we can make gloveglu a global brand and something that can really, be interesting for us as a journey and financially and everything in and around that. So yes, probably the milestone was me about to turn 50 years old, thinking maybe I've got an itch that I need to scratch still, which is me building a global sports brand, having worked with global sports brands. I guess that's the nutshell.
Cool. I suppose, was she sold instantly, or did she need some persuading?
I think she's been amazing. I mean, I wouldn't be able to do what I do without her support. Yeah. So, inwardly, she might be different, showing a slightly different emotion than she was actually. Look, okay, fine, let's go for it. Which is a hard decision when you've got kids in private education and you've got bills and you've got mortgage and you've got all this stuff.
Yes.
At that age, maybe it's a harder decision than it is at 20 something with very little, risk or less risk, should we say. So, yeah, it was pretty amazing that she said yes.
Well, I mean, it's often overlooked and undervalued, but I think the power and strength that comes from having a 100% supportive partner who's all in on the journey too should never be underestimated at all. Couldn't have done what we've done in the last kind of 21 years without Sue's amazing help in my life. And I think if you haven't got that support at home, it's another tension that you just don't need, and also a potential distraction as well, right? So I think that, and I do think it's interesting because I look back to when I was 26 when I got involved in kind of my first big scale up project. And at that point, you don't have anything to lose, because reality is like, okay, if it goes pear-shaped, it's not the end of the world. I'm young enough, but I think as you move towards that part in your life where you're looking, you've got less runway ahead than you have behind. There's a part of you that's going, if this doesn't work out and it takes me 5 years to recover, I don't know if I've got 5 years to recover and go and do another cycle, right? That's the kind of inner dialogue piece, isn't it? So so you were about 500,000 at that point.
Yep.
Just trading UK or trading? Because
No, I guess one of the advantages that I had and continue to have is because of that time spent in the industry.
Yep.
Having worked with lots of brands, global brands, I would since we launched, after we launched gloveglu in 2012, I might be sitting in an international sales meeting somewhere, having a conversation like this over a beer. Hey, Paul, what are you doing? And typically the distributor would have multiple brands, and one of those brands would be the brand why we're at that sales meeting. Oh, yeah, and we'd talk about gloveglu, and you might go, oh, well, I'm Paul in Spain. Oh, I think I could sell your product. So I was able to grow relatively quickly some global distribution. So that classic B2B model. So we already had something, but the product range was very limited at that stage. And, for me, it was a side gig. So for these global distributors.
Were you still working then at that time?
Yeah. My core business then was basically a sales agency business. So representing sports brands based in Europe. I had a team of sales agents selling into sports shops in and around UK and Ireland, and a credit control team and a customer care team. And the gig being sports brand based in Europe, we would sell the entire product range from a brand. Okay. Might be Spalding basketball, for example. Take it to the marketplace. Their end of the bargain was to ship the product from Europe into the UK. Our end of the bargain was to sell it, chase the money, etc.
Right.
Worked brilliantly until the B word came along, Brexit, where suddenly this whole model that worked because we could seamlessly ship goods from Europe into the UK clearly was a broken model.
Yes.
So that was the core of the business. And gloveglu was this little side gig that, as you alluded to, that was an idea I came up with, and we ended up, sitting around the kitchen table of an evening, pouring this grippy spray into a bottle, and hand applying labels and hand boxing and all this sort of stuff. So yes,
just explain to people who may not have heard. Firstly, may not be into football.
Yes,
because not everybody listening to this podcast is into football. But secondly, one of the things I always say is that if you want to get to sort of 500,000 to 1 million, you've got to figure out a niche, right? You've got to be really focused on one specific niche. Don't go wide, go narrow. Pick a problem that you can solve and go really deep, right? Yeah. So an inch wide, mile deep, that kind of thing. Yeah. Like yours is probably the most extreme version of that I think I can remember in the time I've been doing this for 21 years. Like, just explain who are you, what is the problem and who are you selling to?
Okay. So in the business that I've just talked about, one of my core clients was a German, predominantly goalkeeping brand, but football brand called Ulsport.
Right.
The problem that they and in fact, pretty much every other goalkeeping glove manufacturer is trying to solve around the world is to make goalkeeping gloves grippy. And they do that by innovating the palm.
Right.
Palms are made of latex.
Okay.
So they're constantly working on trying to improve the latex of a palm and make a palm grippy.
Okay.
At the top end of the marketplace, one of the key ways to make a palm grippy, apart from adding other little bits of grippy things inside that palm, is that the latex is quite soft.
Right.
The challenge with that is because the latex is soft, it doesn't last very long.
Right.
So you might spend 150 quid on a pair of goalkeeping gloves, and it doesn't last very long, but out of the packet, they're super grippy. At the other end of the scale, at 10 quid, the latex is hard and it's going to last a long time. So my idea, the pain I was trying to save was, well, hang on a second, what happens to that pair of gloves that you've spent a lot of money on, this very quickly at the top end, they're going to lose their performance. How do we? Is there something we can do?
Yeah.
Which was this idea of, well, imagine if we could apply something to the palm of that glove to re-grip it effectively, to make it grippy. Or at the other end of the scale, imagine where you've got this hard latex that isn't very grippy. Imagine we could apply something to that to make it more grippy. So that was the pain point that I identified and the problem that I thought was worth solving, because everybody else was looking at it just from a palm innovation perspective.
Yes.
And I was looking at it from a completely the opposite point of view, going, well, no, I can forget the palm thing. What about applying something to?
Yes, add something to an existing product rather than take something away from a product or change the product altogether.
Correct.
And I think sometimes entrepreneurs forget that sometimes just by adding something, you can create a massive amount of value. You don't have to reinvent it. You can just add to and make something better.
Correct.
Which is interesting.
Yep.
I think, so that got you to about 500,000 at that point. And so there's an interesting lesson in there for me about the power of your network. That business would not have grown that fast if you hadn't had the experience and the network that you could leverage.
Correct.
And I think so many times entrepreneurs launch businesses without thinking about, hang on a second, do I have an existing network I can tap into to accelerate this in the first year or two? And if you haven't, or the product you're trying to sell or the problem you're trying to solve is for people who are outside your current network, then you've got to go build a network from scratch all over again. And that's lag time, isn't it?
Yeah.
So like, I think for me, the lesson out of that bit is that actually what you did, your asset in that experience, in that sort of story is the asset was the relationships you built up over 20 years.
I was very lucky that, as you rightly say, I had the relationships to be able to effectively run gloveglu, which, that first product that we just talked about was a spray to spray on your goalkeeping gloves to make them grippy. I was very lucky that I was able to seed that in this B2B network that we just talked about. So yes, you're absolutely right. That was almost predominantly contact led.
Yep.
This little conversation that we're having about gloveglu, and would you like to represent the brand?
Yep.
Call it a brand. The product at that stage.
Yep.
Would you like to sell my one product that I have into Spain?
Yeah. But that's all you need, right? You just need one product to get started.
Sure.
So I think would you say you see yourself mainly, or at that time, did you just see yourself mainly as a sales and marketing guy? Was that your identity?
100%.
Okay. And what started to shift? Because to go from 500,000 to 1 million, double the business in 12 months is when we started working together, which is an interesting story in itself, because you'd been like stalking me for how long on LinkedIn?
I think I can't remember whether it was 12 or 14 years.
It was 11, I think.
And it is a good story, and we should quickly jump to that very quickly. I came to one of your sessions, whatever it was, 11 years before we started properly working together, and we weren't in touch after that.
Nope.
And I think social media then played a part, because you started popping up in my LinkedIn feed, and I remember going to that guy. And so the absolute takeaway is, the sales funnel can be way longer than anybody realizes. Don't give up after a year or 2 years or 5 years or even 10 years in this instance, because suddenly there's a client, and we've been working together, I think 2 or 3 years at least.
Three.
That comes back in and becomes a core client.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I was coaching call with a client today, and he was saying, "Oh, we've just done this exhibition. We've invested tens of thousands of pounds, and I'm asking the sales team, what's my ROI?" And I was like, "When did you do the exhibition again?" He's like, 2 weeks ago. And I'm like, you cannot tell what the ROI on that is for months, if not years, possibly, because some of the leads that come out of that might not convert for 2 or 3 years, depending on the sales cycle. So I think with all of that, it's the value, the value is in the network and the relationships if you keep them alive.
Yeah.
I remember you telling me that you rang me up and said, "Oh, I came to one of your events. Do you remember when?" And luckily I've got a very good CRM system logged in, checked. I was like, "Oh yeah, you came to this."
That was and that's interesting as well, because that for me was, yes, I think I want to work with this guy. Everything I'm seeing about the product looks good. The test was, okay, is this person doing what they're saying they do? I.e., how good is your CRM? Like, do they even know who I am? And of course, your answer was perfect. It was yes. Well, actually, I think your answer was something like, well, yes, I can tell you that the last email correspondence we had was on the 12th of November, or whatever. So it's like, okay, yeah, fine. I'm in.
Yes. Which has always been an important part for me, because I think there are a lot of people in my industry who tell you what to do but don't do it.
Yep.
And I'm a great believer that you've got to be able to, practice what you teach is the phrase that I use. It's like, if you're going to teach it, you should practice it. That doesn't mean you can't improve it, but I don't want to be teaching people to do stuff I'm not doing. There's a congruency piece for there that's really important. So let's just, you're at the £500,000. I think there's an interesting detour here, which is today you're in a place where you've got nearly over 1 million followers on YouTube, on socials now. Or
Yeah,
brands.
I think 1.3, 1.4 million across TikTok and Instagram and Facebook and YouTube and so on.
So when in the decision process did you start to take that seriously? When did that become? Because TikTok was your son, right? Your son.
Yeah, so I think again probably that same period, 2019, 2020. In the same way that we'd, in the nicest possible way, played with some global distribution and some sales, and it sounds crazy, doesn't it? Because there'll be listeners that are going, "Wow, £500,000 is a really nice level of business," and of course it is a nice level of business. But we were playing with this thing, and we were playing with social media. We've talked about the turning point as to what my decision was to let's go serious with the gloveglu. The decision to go serious with social media, as you rightly said, came from my youngest son, who at the time was probably 15, 16. Dad, we need to be on TikTok. I don't know what you're talking about. What is this TikTok? In 2019, TikTok then was nothing like it is now.
Yeah.
And the perception for most people at that stage is, well, it's just a platform where people do silly dances.
Dancing, dancing was the original early adopter trend.
Exactly right.
Yep.
No, Dad, gloveglu needs to be on TikTok. So I said, okay, fine. So yeah, cut a long story short, we decided together. I said, fine, let's do it together as a father-son project, and we'll film some content every Saturday for an hour. And you can tell me, because you're on the platform, because it's your target market, you're the target customer. You tell me the trends, and we'll film stuff, and you can post the stuff. So it was that momentum, or was that initiative, that gave us the momentum to go, okay, well, let's really look at social properly as a part of the key strategy to grow, to grow our brand, to grow our business. At that stage, when I was also looking to basically divest all of the other business interests and go full time into gloveglu. Even then, and it's relevant, as relevant today as it was then. There are brands in multiple sectors driving businesses purely through social.
100%.
And we weren't making that play, because up until that point we were kind of a B2B play, as I said. So that was the point. Okay, social needs to be an important part of what we do. We have a huge advantage that we know who our customer is. They're called a goalkeeper. So to define
you can find
a goalkeeper, we can find them.
Yes, and you know what channels they're likely to be watching.
Exactly right.
So, like, I shout out to Rick, because Rick sort of told me the way he thinks about it is he calls it business media, not social media, and I really like that change in just that influence. But I mean, so you built out what YouTube's over 100? Is it over 100,000?
I think 230,000 subscribers,
which is a massive value as well, right? So if you're looking at value on the balance sheet, having a YouTube channel with 250,000 followers in your target market is a massive asset.
Yeah,
and I think some of the sales of YouTube channels in recent months and years have proved, or certainly the last year, and how valuable that can be.
Yeah,
tens of millions and stuff. So what would you say to somebody who is still not taking it seriously? They're playing at it. They're not seeing it as a massive growth channel, a way to build brand, to build a platform, isn't it? Really, is what we're talking about here. Like, you've built a platform of well over 1.2, 1.3 million people who follow your brand.
Yeah.
What would you say to somebody who's still resisting going all in on social as a strategy?
I don't think that you can build a business in any sector in today's world without social media being at the forefront of that business.
Right.
And that doesn't matter and that it might be LinkedIn. From, if you look at your business and your sector, let's say, LinkedIn's super important. It might be TikTok, and we can perhaps talk about TikTok shops and everything around that. It might be YouTube, and maybe YouTube leans more into the educational play and the longer form and some deeper content,
SEO stuff as well.
Exactly. It might be Insta, that's more of a brand build, brand essence. So I don't think it's ever been easier to start a inverted commas a brand
Yes.
than it is today. Cheaply, one can almost say for free, and by doing that and using social media to do that, to found is as the foundation for that business.
Do you think the danger with that is that because the barrier to entry is so low now that people don't take it seriously? Because, I look back and think of some of the businesses I've started over my career, raised millions for one, remortgaged house for another. It's like when you're all in like that, it has to work. If you can start it, play with it, see if it works. I wonder if the flip side of what is clearly brilliant that you can start a brand, scale it without very much money today, but also the flip side of that is if you're not taking it seriously, it's like, because it doesn't cost you a lot. Do you think is that a risk? Do you think for people?
I mean, the whole point about social media is you have to be persistent and patient and consistent.
Yes.
So you can't play at it, but if you have to take it seriously. I mean, you can't have a bit of a play and do some TikTok posts, and after the third or fourth one, it hasn't really worked, and go, it's not really part of my strategy. In the same way that you can't go, maybe I'll, back in the old world, well, perhaps I think I've got something to sell, and I'll go and knock on 3 or 4 doors, and no, everybody said no, and
true.
Okay, then I won't bother getting in the car and go. It works in exactly the same way. You say it, you've got to keep turning up.
Yep.
You have to keep turning up, and you have to keep pushing that forward. I think the barrier to entry thing is an interesting one. If you look at where TikTok Shops is now, anybody can jump onto TikTok, and if they have something to sell,
yes,
and that might be even arbitraging something that they've gone to Tesco's and something's on a special offer and it's 50% off, but they know that actually there are other people who are going to pay RRP for it. So actually, they've really even the risk of purchasing the product is very little. The point is, you can get on TikTok and very quickly. You don't even need to have a big following like we have, 890,000 followers on TikTok. You don't need that. You might have a couple of thousand, a couple of hundred, and you can go on there and sell a product through TikTok Shops. In fact, you don't even need to buy that product. I'll go back on the Tesco scenario. You can be an affiliate.
Yes.
You can basically present other people's products.
Yes.
Build an audience.
Yes.
And there are time and time again, you can see people that are doing that and building it very quickly.
You were in a, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, you were in a meeting recently with loads of UK entrepreneurs who were all doing a lot of money on TikTok.
TikTok
right?
invited me to their SME council, so the inaugural council. There was 20 of us sitting around the table, basically helping TikTok write a paper, really a government paper, really to demonstrate to the UK government the value that TikTok brings to the economy.
Right.
And that value is at the moment and growing very rapidly. 1.3 billion pounds worth of revenue is being driven through TikTok Shops. 32,000 people are employed in or directly have employment in and around that TikTok shop space.
Really?
Which is phenomenal.
Wow. Okay. So do you think governments have any idea of that?
No idea.
Yes, I don't sense that.
We had that in that particular. This meeting was in Stoke-on-Trent. Actually, 3 MPs were invited. In fact, to be fair to what one did indeed turn up, and the discussion around the table then talked about how does a local MP engage with their constituents.
Right.
And the old way would be, well, I'm going to have a clinic on a Friday afternoon, and if you've got a problem in the constituent, then you turn up and you ask the question. To be fair to the MP that turned up, he recognises that model is completely broken because nobody's going to turn up, and if they do, they're probably not.
And the safety concerns.
It's the same guy that turns up every month because he's got nothing else to do. That particular MP recognised that social media, and indeed TikTok in particular, is a fantastic way to engage with the. I was going to say the younger population, but in fact now, as the demographic across TikTok grows, actually to engage generally with the wider population in his constituency. So he was But he would say a lot of my colleagues in Westminster would have no idea what we're talking about.
No.
They just wouldn't get it. They
Well,
just they're not even on that same
they wouldn't even
page.
be aware of it, right? When they go, "Oh, death of the high street," and you're like, "It's that's you're thinking about 20 years ago. Like the world's moved on." And I mean, you were telling me, I think someone in China who sold £7 million of handbags.
The live streaming, the live shopping,
Yes,
in Douyin, which is the TikTok equivalent in China, is just insane. And as you say, it's multi-million. You've got these live streamers, in front of camera, and in fact, it's not in front of camera, in front of phones, but multiple. There could be 100 phones in front of them, so they've got 100 different channels that they're basically live streaming on. So which means that you're broadcasting to a large number of people.
Yep.
And they're generating millions of pounds per hour. I mean, I think the record was set last year, kind of Q4 last year. It was something crazy, like 8 million or 10 million in the hour. Like a number that you just go, that's just insane. But the reality is, social commerce is coming. We're now getting it in this country. Social commerce is huge in China. What do I mean by that? I mean, basically, you're in the app, you're looking at content, you scroll through the content, you like what you buy, you like what you see, you buy it, you carry on scrolling. You never leave that ecosystem. You never leave the app, which of course is way more compelling.
It's their goal, right? It's their goal.
It's their goal. And the Chinese culture is in that environment. It's actually, I never leave the app because I do my messaging in it, I do my banking in it, I do my shopping in it. That's my world. We're heading in that direction. It's taking, to be fair, longer than I thought it would do. We started on TikTok shops 3 or 4 years ago, came away, going back into it. But we're starting to recognize in this country that, okay, that's a really nice medium. You've got brands like Lux Collective. The guys, if your listeners have seen Dragon's Den, they were on Dragon's Den. They basically take pre-loved designer items. So, it might be a £5,000, £10,000 Gucci handbag.
Right.
They've done 2.5 million quid in the last 12 months on TikTok shops. I sat next to a guy the other day. It was a sweet business. They've done 5 million quid in TikTok shops in the last 12 months selling sweets. So their average basket size, I think, was £11. Obviously, Lux Collective, their average basket size is probably hundreds of, if not thousands of.
Yes.
So it doesn't matter where you are in the marketplace, where your price points are, what you're selling.
There's an audience.
There's an audience, and they're prepared to use this vehicle to purchase whatever product it is. Fascinating. Where that goes is a really interesting.
I think you said to me, or somebody said to me, in America now, people are selling cars on TikTok. They're selling apartments on TikTok. It's where's the eyeballs? Where's the platform? It's the old marketing thing. It's like first of all, where's the audience hanging out?
Yeah.
Which I think is interesting because yesterday I was running a CEO boardroom for clients of mine who are between 5 and 50 million who are looking to scale up. And one of the interesting things in the conversation was actually everyone was looking at the opportunity about not going digital, but going back to some of the traditional media, like direct mail shots, local advertising. If you own a chain of vet stores, for example, each one has a 5-mile pool radius, basically. So, yes, Facebook to some extent, but actually, you can carpet bomb the heck out of with posts, with flyers and door drops and everything within 5 miles of that. You can sponsor every bus stop within 5 miles of that. So it's and the price of all of that is going down and down and down because there's less people on it, because everyone's competing on digital platforms where the price is going up. And I think with all of yes, there are massive opportunities. And if you're listening to this and you're thinking, I'm a £500,000 business, I want to scale, but I don't want to spend money on infrastructure, don't want to take a shop out, risky, don't want to spend money on signing a lease, all of those kind of things, you go, well, look, okay, if we spent 2 years building out our platform on TikTok and actually said we're going to strategically master that channel.
Yeah.
And I think this is what a lot of people do. I'm really glad you talked about strategy, because you said, is it part of our strategy? And I think the first thing is, most people listening to this probably haven't written down or got a strategy. I think that's the first, I've got the scale up framework, obviously, that I teach. And for me, the S is about, have you got a clear strategy? Do you actually know where you're going, what you're trying to achieve, who the market is, where they're hanging out? And then we can talk about channels to get to them. But most people don't even have that strategic clarity. Have you always been do you think you got taught how to think strategically, or do you think it was something like when you're $500,000, are you thinking, okay, great. First goal for me is 7 figures, like it's $1 million, because that's I always talk about that's the first goal, right? Like 7 figures in revenue, just because less than 7% of business people ever make it there.
Yeah.
Did you sit strategically and think, right, that's the first thing I'm going to go crack? Was that in your head?
I think you know, let's use the word strategy or use the word vision in this. What I'm going to say is maybe they're interchangeable. And the reason I say that is because having come up through a sales, marketing, and product side of an industry, the sporting goods industry,
Right.
whereby traditionally it's changed a little bit now, but traditionally those businesses were forward-selling businesses. What I mean by that is you would be going out in September, October, and forward selling for products that would be delivered into the marketplace the following June or July.
Right.
So you're always working on this forward cycle, and the product development cycle, you would be probably 18, if not 2 years ahead of it. So I think that taught me to have that future vision and look 3, 4, 5 steps ahead, which I think when you bring that back into strategy was really is super important, because actually the strategy to get from 5 to $1 million, you have to be forward thinking, you have to be forward looking. And in fact, the goal for me is, and again, you use the mountain
Scale up summit and all
vision,
that,
if you like, which is, here's how do we get to the top of the mountain, which, depending on what your expectations are, might be 10 million, 25, 100 million, whatever it is. But hey, here's some steps along the way. You've got to have that ultimate vision in mind.
Yes.
And that sort of to help you with your strategy. So yes, we were talking about going from 500,000 to $1 million, but the bigger picture was, but how do we get to 5 million?
Was that the big vision at that point?
Yeah, I think you and I probably sat down and said, this is 5 million, it's $1 million, it's a 5 million turnover, $1 million EBITDA, that's a nice business.
Yes. Yeah.
And the pathway that we're on, that's exactly where we're heading. And probably the timescales that we set ourselves also is exactly where we're heading. So I think that clear vision is super important. Otherwise, you're bumbling along going, well, where do you want to get to? Well, I don't really know, actually. Well, hey, good, but we've done okay. Sales are quite good this year. Yeah, but could they have been better? Could you, what?
It's intention, isn't it?
Good against what? What are you benchmarking against? Last year? Or, if we'd have said, we saw 2 years, and I think you said at the top of the pod, we had two years of 40% plus growth. This last year has been just shy of 20. If in those 2 years where we'd been seeing 40% growth, we'd have been going, great, this is really, we're brilliant, we're 10% up year on year, we should be super happy. We wouldn't have achieved those 40% because we weren't saying that. We were saying, well, hang on a sec, no, actually, this is what we're benchmarking against. Is the 40%, is the not 10%. So,
but I think there's an interesting point there, which I think too many entrepreneurs get told by their accountants, controversial statement coming, that they're doing really well if they're growing at 10%, because that's what the accountants predisposed to think is good.
Yeah.
That's what the accountant, who is not a business growth expert, by the way, they look backwards, not forwards. If you're listening to this as an accountant, we love accountants, but they're not genuinely, as a rule, driving business growth, because they're measuring metrics backwards, not forward looking, right? There's a different functionality. We need them. We absolutely value them, but there's a different lens they're looking at things through, and therefore they're biased. There is a bias in everything they do, and the vast majority of clients they're talking to are not growing at 40%, so they have that bias. I have a different bias, which is I'm talking to most entrepreneurs that are growing at 30, 40, 50%, because you can, when you believe that you can. The first thing is you have to believe that's even possible before you even ask the question. Then you're sitting there going, okay, great. If you can do 40% now, then what is it that for you drives you at that level to want to play that kind of game? What drives you to do that?
It's a personal drive,
right?
Definitely. Without doubt, one of the key drivers has been mixing in a community where you see people that have super successful businesses, 20, 30, 50 million, 100 million. And it's a really strange thing to say, but I see this in the sporting world, and people go, oh my, look at Messi, he's amazing. Like, but he's just a human being. And from a business point of view, you mix with people and you go, That's great. They've got £100 million business, but they're not some superhero.
They're not
I can
genetically different.
I can relate to that person.
Yes.
Why have they got 100 million? Well, they've got clear vision, they've got clear strategy, they've got the steps, they're following this pathway. And that's a massive comfort. If you recognize it doesn't matter whether you're at 50 grand, 550 grand, 550 million. We're all actually on that same pathway. We're just on a different place on that pathway. And I think that's been the biggest takeaway for me in the last 3 or 4 years. Is I'm on the journey. Well, that's great. I love meeting people that are ahead of me on the journey, and actually, I love people that are behind me on the journey.
Yes,
because even people behind me, I can still learn from, as well as the people ahead of me. So that's.
But isn't that's the very, to use a sports analogy, because obviously that's your background, and I'm kind of talking to entrepreneurs all the time now about this idea that you need to be able to think like a high performance athlete actually as an entrepreneur, because there's an on season, there should be a rest and recovery period, there should be a time when you're planting season planning. And actually, most entrepreneurs think that if they're just on all the time, that's the answer. And it's not. If you look at athletes, they train for an event and they rest and recover, and then they go again. And or they train for an Olympics, or they train for a season, and then they get. And interestingly, the rest and recovery in a football season, for example, is different, isn't it? Because at the beginning of the season, you need less rest because you're fresh, because you've had the summer off or whatever, and therefore you need less rest and recovery. As the season goes on, you get injured, you get tired, you need more rest and recovery. And I think if you look across the course of a year, and certainly I'm doing this in my life now, the first 4 or 5 months, because I've been away at Christmas or whatever, or had proper downtime, I can push harder those 4 or 5 months. I know I can. But then as we start to get to the back end of the year and it starts to get to sort of September, October, I have to be very careful about how I manage my energy then and my recovery, so that I can still perform at the level I want. I need more recovery time. So I tend to load the year now with more recovery at the back end of the year than at the front of the year, because I feel that for me that works. It's like I'm fresh at the beginning of the year. Let's really go after that kind of like, not my hustle, but it's kind of like what I would call the kind of like sort of the execution period. Like, let's execute like crazy, right? I talk about this idea now of connect and collect. Let's go connect with as many people as we possibly can and collect the money that's available that's out there. Let's do that full on right now. But there'll be a period where we've exhausted all those opportunities and we need to then recover, and then we need to reset and then replan and then plan the next push. And for me, I've totally changed how I'm looking at my diary, just because I've talked to sports people and they go, oh yeah, no, you need more recovery at the back end of the year.
Yeah.
And I think most entrepreneurs, we just think we can just be hustle all the time and that'll work. And then I thought it causes all kinds of issues, right?
The sports analogy is great for me. I'll have conversations with people, and I'm proud that I'm working with a business coach. There'll be other people that just won't get it, won't even talk about it. Why do I get it? Well, because it doesn't matter what athlete. If you could be a Novak Djokovic, you could be the best tennis player in the world, but you're still going to have a coach. Now, that coach is not necessarily telling you how to improve your backhand. The coach is mentoring you and helping you in so many other areas. And we go back to strategy. How do I beat X player? What do I do? Is it mindset? Is it physical? There's all these other elements in and around that. And it's the same in business. So you're right, that subscribe to listen to your body and listen to, where you, if you go a million miles an hour as an athlete, you're going to get injured, then you're out the game, and then it's very, very difficult, and so on and so forth. And I'm the same. And I think so. Couple of things that I've implemented in the last couple of years is a monthly CEO day. Take a day out.
Yep.
A day out, just turn off phones, go and do something, go for a walk, go for a bike ride, go walk along a beach, whatever. Those are the days where they're my problem solving. Those little conundrums that are going round and round in the head, the things that you want to think about, the thing of, I've been trying to wrestle with that. More often than not, that time away, I'm solving those conundrums. And what does that mean? Well, it means A, I come back with the solution, and B, I come back super motivated because A, I've had a day's rest, and B, I've got the solution. Come on, let's go again.
Yeah.
So that's not going sitting on the beach.
And reflect.
It's not going sitting on the beach in the Bahamas for 2 weeks. It's just taking time out. So that is definitely one.
Could be a Friday afternoon even, right? Sometimes I think, just go, look, I'm going to reflect and refresh and reflect, and it can be a Friday afternoon. Just you leave the office, you're out the office, you're done at 1, and you go take off Friday afternoon to rest and reflect.
Yeah.
And I think because one of the things when I've said this to CEOs like yourself is they go, I feel guilty if I'm doing that. And I'm like, you're the number one most valuable player on the team.
Yeah.
You are. We need you fit mentally, physically at all times. Therefore, you resting and recovering is actually one of the best things you can do for the business.
Yeah.
It's actually an investment in the future success you want.
But I completely get that guilt trip. But again, and I think I've nearly solved that. I'm getting over it. I still feel guilty. For me, one of the best ways of overcoming that guilt is to be completely transparent with my team and explain to them that actually I'm not going to be in this afternoon because I've done X, Y, and Z, and actually I've got to go and solve this problem. They get it.
Yeah.
If you just disappear off, where is he? What's he doing? Whatever. So I think that has definitely helped, because then they also understand why I'm not there, what I'm trying to do, what I'm trying to solve, and so on and so forth. So that's that. I think the guilt thing is very, very common, as is and I have a second business that we launched 3 years ago with an ex goalkeeping coach that's in and around goalkeeping education and camps and so on. And it's interesting how his mindset is changing from the situation that was, his mindset was, I'm getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning and working till 10 o'clock at night. I've been super efficient. I've really worked hard. He's realizing now, actually, it's not about the number of hours that you put in. It's about the quality in those hours. And I know it sounds a bit cliched, but he's starting to understand that he can be way more efficient, not working silly hours, listening to his body, focusing on the priority things, getting rid of the noise. So that's a lesson I've learned. That's a lesson I'm trying to teach him, and it's a lesson that I think a lot of the listeners could take away. Is just listen.
Do you know what's the power of allowing? Actually, sometimes you just have to allow stuff to come to you, whether it's the idea, the solution, and if you're full on foot down to the floor running, you can't allow anything to come in, and that's why I think meditation is such a powerful thing, because it slows everything down to just stop for a minute and just allow. Walking on a beach, going out into nature, there is immense power in stop. I was saying this the other day. I was saying, look, I said so many entrepreneurs have what I call the attack mentality. It's like, we're going to go and attack this. We're going to attack that problem. I said, actually, sometimes that's actually really counterproductive, because that very energy is combative. It's heavily dopamine driven. And actually, sometimes what you need is to just sit back and go, do you know what? I'm just going to allow this to happen and get this. And when you realize that when you put stuff out into the universe, woo-woo warning for all those listening who don't like this stuff, but when you do put your stuff out into the universe, you can, if you just let go of the attachment to how it's going to happen, it happens remarkably fast. And I'll give you a quick story of this. Like 2 days ago, I was with Becky and I said, you know what? I think one of the things that would be really good to do, it's been on my dream board for a while, kind of like the thing I'd love to do is to do an entrepreneur retreat where we take people to South Africa to a proper safari lodge. And we can do safari, and then we can do 5 days of scale, right? So SCAL, a 5-day kind of safari lodge retreat and everything like that. And I said, you know what, that would be a good thing to do. I kind of feel like that we could bring people from all over the world to that. That would be kind of like an exciting thing to plan. I kid you not, 24 hours later, she says, you're not going to believe this. I said, what? She said, I've just had a message from one of our old clients who's now coaching a lodge in South Africa that puts all of their money back into the community. So they don't make a profit. It all goes back to local community and charity, and they want help building their team. And she said, I think it would be perfect for the thing you want to do. Because a large part, for me, it's like I try and support independent hotels where I can. I try and support independent businesses because enough people support the chains, try and support the independents. And I'm like, that's just like, that's, she's looking at me like, that was what you were asking for there, right? And I think sometimes because we aren't asked with enough clarity about what we want to show up, and then we try to chase it. I couldn't have found that if I'd have tried. I just sat back and said, you know what? It'd be awesome if we could do that. I don't know how yet. I'll allow that to come to me, not have to go get it. And I think when you can lose that, the thing that really annoys me on social is people pushing this agenda of success is driven by hustle all the time. I think it's dangerous. I think it causes people to get sick. I think there is a time to hustle, and yeah, absolutely, that's connect and collect time. Then bring it, absolutely. When you're on that cycle, when you're in that season, that cycle. When there's 3 cycles, when you're on that cycle, all in, go for it. But it's not where you live. It absolutely isn't, right? Sports people don't live in that level of intensity. You can't live there. So I think it's just interesting of that. Yeah, CEO days was one you said. What was the other things you said you'd kind of done to sort of just learn to kind of step back from being so in it all the time?
It sounds crazy. Driving in a car is really great for me. I get a load of ideas. Just again, like I said, it's being outside of the norm.
Yes.
Take yourself outside of your normal environment and give yourself brain. Give your brain chance to think. So yeah, that's one for me.
I also think as well about cars or trains or planes,
Yeah,
because you're moving. There is something about the energy around moving, and I don't know what it is, but
Yeah.
there is something about some of the best ideas I've ever had have been on a plane. Just because you're in motion, there's something about that,
Yeah,
and I
there
don't
is,
know
yeah.
what it does to the brain or why. I just know it works.
Yeah, yeah,
So we were talking about team a few minutes ago.
yeah,
Passionate thing for you. You're passionate about teams.
yeah.
Obviously, I'm a big believer that you can't live the dream if you can't build a team. So what you're at 500,000, and what were one or two of the big moves you made people wise that started to really accelerate your growth? What were a couple of the people that you brought in that had the most impact at that stage?
So I think at that stage, um, you alluded to it at the top of the pod. I positioned myself probably then as a sales and marketing guy. So there were two changes that needed to happen. One is I needed to reframe myself as founder and CEO, if you like, which meant I needed to be across all aspects of the business. So that wasn't necessarily bringing someone in. That was a change for me.
Right.
And in doing that process, I recognise that the part that, if I'm honest, A, I wasn't particularly interested in or excited by, but B, was going to be fundamental to grow the business, was on the ops side of things. I needed to have a really, really strong COO, ops director, call it what you will, a
Yes.
person who's sitting there who is detail orientated, who will make sure that as we continue to scale, products being ordered. In our instance, we produce our own products as well, but we still have to buy in the raw materials. But
Yep.
products are being produced on time. Bottles are being ordered, and labels are being ordered, and boxes are being ordered, and so that's the first thing. So products are being made, and then when we're selling the products, when I continue to sell the products, they're being sent out to the right customer at the right time, an invoice, and so on and so forth. That was a really, really, really key hire for me. And again, it's a little bit, you just talking about the South Africa scenario, it kind of fell into my lap. And I'm not saying this is necessarily the approach that everybody should take, but it was having lunch with my designer, who I've worked with for on lots of different projects for over 20 years, and him having a conversation with me saying that his wife, who I sort of knew but didn't know that well, is how his wife was in this role, in a warehouse ops role, and wasn't really very happy about it, and it was a terrible culture, and so on and so forth, and that of course led to a conversation, and then Sim joined the business, and she's been huge in terms of making a massive difference, and improving the efficiencies and everything that I've just talked about, and making sure the product comes in and goes out at the right time. So that, and also that was hiring somebody that strengthened my weak side.
Yes.
That weak side is that I'm not an attention to detail ops type person. So that was big. I think also at that same time, the other side, as part of me reframing myself as his founder and CEO, was and moving away from the sales and marketing Paul Sherratt, was I need to embrace and understand the numbers, the finance. Again, doesn't particularly excite me, but it should excite me, because that's the heart and soul of the business. If as an owner and as an entrepreneur, you don't understand those numbers, well, how the heck can you be making these decisions based in and around, let's say, my sweet spot of product? And why are you making assumptions on this product thing where you don't understand the numbers? So at that stage, we outsourced kind of the bookkeeping and financial element to somebody to make sure that those numbers were in place at the right time, and the reports that were coming back were timely and relevant and accurate, and gave me and Sim the tools to then be able to manage the business from a financial perspective. So two things that ticked the finance box and the ops box. I was ticking the sales and marketing box suddenly.
Yeah.
Still with a very, very small team of effectively two of us, we were able to make sure that we covered all of the core aspects of the business to enable us to take that next step that was, okay, let's go from 500,000 to 1 million. Tell you a real quick story, because Sim always reminds me of this. The conversation at the time, and we were doing very little in e-com, and we were doing a bit of B2B, and we were doing a bit of Amazon, but as well as her coming in and solving these general ops issues, there was the nitty-gritty day-to-day of picking and packing orders.
Right.
Like the simple stuff, yeah?
Yes.
And I think the interview conversation was something, it's a couple of hours pick and pack, and the rest is sort of op stuff. And then I think
I have a feeling it might have been more. I'm sensing it might have been more, right?
I think very, very quickly it was sort of 6 hours of pick and pack, and then 2 hours of her going, well, I don't have enough time in the day now to, which of course then led to the next hire and so on and so forth. But yeah, that was.
So I just want to go back, because I think you mentioned something really important, but I also want to take you into a place that was, I think, a pivotal conversation for you, but it wasn't had by me. So there was a conversation that you had on the retreat that we run about numbers, wasn't there?
There was.
With a man that we both know and love, Jeff, right?
Yes.
Can you talk us, because I think, what I love about things like that, this experience you're about to relay, is that sometimes the biggest shifts happen from people who are outside your industry and who challenge the way you see yourself.
Yeah.
And I think, one of the things I'm really passionate about is helping people shift their identity. But sometimes the person who shifts it more than me is the person who happens to be in the room who just asks the blunt kind of question.
Yeah.
So just talk us through that, because that was on retreat, 2 years ago, maybe, I think?
Yeah. It was an exercise, and I can't quite remember the details of the exercise, but effectively we ended up sitting around in a group, probably 8 to 10 of us, talking around numbers in the business. As I said, I'm not quite sure how we were, in what context. It might have been along the lines of, how much money do you need? How much, just this general numbers conversation. And I think it came round to me, and I didn't really have the answer, which was the first penny dropping, with me going to myself, oh, why don't I have the answer? And then the aforementioned Jeff bluntly looking me in the eye and basically saying, but you're the founder and CEO of the business. Like, why don't you have the answer?
Yes.
Which was a very blunt, but absolutely the right question to ask at the right time. He's absolutely right. We're trying to scale this thing to 5 million, 10 million and more.
Mm.
And I've got no take, I've got no handle on where we are. I've got this sort of broadish understanding of the numbers. I'm not really delving into Xero on a daily basis and looking at the P&L and I just wasn't doing any of that. And I remember going back that evening and calling Karen at home and sort of going, at the same time, this recognition of, I can't be Paul Sherratt, salesman. I can't go, I'm a sales. I don't need to know the numbers of the sales and marketing. That skin had to shed that skin to be this founder and CEO, of which one of the most critical points was, of course, you've got to understand the numbers.
Yeah.
Which then led to a whole exercise of coming back and really delving into that as a huge project to make sure that that they were understood and we knew where we were. We put cash flow tools in place and completely recategorized everything in and around Xero, and ended up in a situation now where, for me, it's a daily exercise to look at, we use Float, which is a great tool for cash flow, to look at Float on a daily basis, to look at Xero on a daily basis, to look at the P&L, to just completely own the financials.
Yes.
And that absolutely came from Retreat and Jeff. He didn't call me an idiot, but the tone of his the tone and the look was basically saying,
what are you doing?
What on earth are you doing?
Yeah. Yeah, and just for context, Jeff is a very good world-class accountant. So yeah,
for him, it's natural.
It's like
for
it's
him,
not,
in the same way that I would be pushing myself into sales and marketing, he'd be saying, "I'm the finance guy. I know everything about the numbers. I know." So for him, it was incredulous.
Yes,
that I didn't know that. He just couldn't comprehend how someone was running a business that was at that time probably going from 500,000 to 1 million or 1 million to 2. Well, I can't remember quite where we're at on the journey.
I think you're about 1 to 2 in the middle of that bit.
Couldn't believe it.
Yeah. Which I think is interesting, because if you talk to Jeff about social media, he would have felt exactly the same way you did about numbers. So like we all have those areas that I think this is the owning the CEO piece. If you're going to be a CEO, then there are certain things you need to understand. And like, I was fortunate enough to spend some time recently with a CEO who built £100 million business, and he said, you have to sell what makes money, sell what makes margin. But if you don't know what makes margin, you could be spending all of your time selling things that don't make you money. And it's like, well, what are you doing? He said, you end up being a busy fool. That was his words. And I was like, yeah, that can happen, because if you're not on top of the numbers, and I think that's a great discipline you just shared around the daily habits of doing it. It's like Keith Cunningham, brilliant speaker in America, and I got to spend some time with him many years ago. But he always used to say the language of numbers, the language of business is finance. If you want to play the game, you need to understand the language. And I think too many entrepreneurs, and I've been guilty of this myself, is like I turn up to see the accountant and they put the balance sheet or the profit and loss for the year in it, and you sort of sit in the room and go, yes. Well, you have no real clue what you're looking at other than 1 or 2 numbers on it. But I think it's that, look, if I'm really going to commit to my future, if I'm going to remortgage my house, if I'm going to invest my time, energy, and effort in building something, I deserve to spend the same amount of time, energy, and effort understanding the numbers well enough to know what's working and what's not, because that's your data point, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's your data set. Yeah, absolutely. But I also think it's that interesting conversation about shifting identity, isn't it? So you have to change your identity, right?
It is. And I think whilst we're on this point about, what was instrumental in that change, yes, it was team, but related to the conversation we just had about finance and so on and so forth, is the great news at the moment is there are so many tools
Absolutely
to help with that process.
Yeah.
So, I at that stage was trying to embrace finance. Option A could have been me completely delving into Excel spreadsheets and pulling my hair out, trying to understand these numbers. Option B was to go to see what apps, what technology, what systems were available to basically do a lot of the grunt and give me the headlines and give me the key topics and also educate me to some extent.
Yeah.
And that again, the investment that we've made in our tech stack has, in all parts of the business, been instrumental in allowing us to grow at the scale that we continue to grow. So it's team, but for me, it was also systems as well. So I just mentioned, for finance, it was.
Yeah, what's your tech stack? Just walk us through your tech stack.
For finance, it's Xero and Float. Then we have a core CRM system which is called Sin7, which is for manufacturing as well. So for raising of purchase orders and production jobs and everything in and around manufacturing, for incoming sales and outgoing orders. So Sin7 plugged into Sin7 is then we have EDI links and APIs into Shopify. So everything in and around Shopify, and we have lots of plugins in and around Shopify for our e-com business. We have linked into Amazon. All of the Amazon marketplaces feed into Sin7
right.
Also. So basically everything goes into Sin7 and then goes out up into Xero. Also plugged into Sin7 is we once everybody got fed up with picking and packing for 8 hours a day, we moved that out to a 3PL for our e-com. So then our 3PL is also plugged into
just for clarity for people who don't know what 3PL is.
Third-party logistics. So effectively, rather than us picking and packing e-com orders in-house, we've pushed those out to a specialist company who warehouse the product and fulfill the orders, all of the e-commerce orders.
Got it.
Quick, reason why we have huge uplift in sales for Q4. We're very giftable as a product range and as a brand. So we're in the sticks in West Oxfordshire. So to find suddenly 4 or 5 temps for October, November, December is quite painful. Using a 3PL, they have the ability to scale to
because they're doing it for lots of people, not just you, right? So it's leverage. It's a leverage point, isn't it?
Exactly right. So they plug into our tech stack. So yeah, those would be the core tools that I use on a daily basis, and the dashboards within those tools to make sure we're hitting the numbers that we want to hit and the KPIs that we want to hit, whatever they may be in whatever department it is. Big help. Without those tools, I'm driving a bus with a load of passengers with my team with no dashboard. There's a road in front of me. I think it's taking me to where I want it to go, but I'm not quite sure even if I'm on the right road. So it gives me my navigation and gives me my key stats. I'm not breaking the speed limit, etc., etc.
I think you need also the thing I've learned over the years is you need different dashboards at different stages. Very much between 500 and a million, it's very much sales and marketing led dashboards are really where you need to put your energy and attention. And as you start to go from 1 to 3 to 5, you've got to have very different dashboards then that reflect margin, that reflect all kinds of other things that are much more around the liquidity of the business. Can we actually, can we stay cash? There's enough cash in the business to enable this thing to run. And I think quite often one of the things I talk about, as you start to move up those levels, you need to level up the data you're collecting and the dashboards that you're looking at. And because if you want to move that fast, if you're going to grow at 40% a year, you've got to have really good dashboards telling you what's going on. Otherwise, you're going into a corner, and to use the car analogy or the bus analogy, you're going to a corner where you should be doing 50 and you're doing 70, and you're going to get unstuck. You're going to get into trouble. And I think it's always one of those jobs I think that can go on there. Yeah, that's a really important thing, but it's not urgent. There's this thing over here I need to do this urgent, and it's like, yeah, but if you don't do this, you will one day turn up and run out of oil. The oil in this analogy being cash, or you'll find you've been driving way too fast and you burn through the tires.
And I would say I with this sales marketing hat, I'd ignored that.
Yeah,
and we nearly got ourselves into those sorts of holes. And again, where were we scaling? Yes, e-com was scaling. Amazon as a sales channel was scaling. Our B2B business was scaling. Suddenly, we were catching these big fish. So the world's biggest sports retailer is Dick's Sporting Goods. They've got 900 stores across the US. Suddenly, we're getting listings in Dick's. Amazing. The problem is the payment terms for those guys are pretty onerous. So then you're adding another. This is amazing. I'm getting a load of revenue. Yeah, but I'm not being paid for 2 months, 3 months, whatever the numbers are.
How am I going to manage
that? How do I manage that?
Yeah.
And how do I scale that? And how do I make sure, going back to the, making sure, am I buying enough chemicals and labels and bottles, and then actually then going back and planning that back with the supply chain.
Yeah.
If you're ignoring all of those, ignoring all of those elements, you're going to find yourself in a cash crisis.
Which I think most entrepreneurs experience once and then go, I'm never doing that again, because it is, but I think they're different too as well at different stages. I think as you level up as a business and you start to go towards that 10 million level, you tend to, we were talking about this yesterday in the room I was running, was your client gets bigger and the contract values get bigger. So when you're sub $1 million, you're doing lots of companies by and large, but they're smaller average order values. You start to get towards 10 million, you're taking on bigger contracts. Might be a 20 million pound contract. If, it could be a 50 million pound contract if it's construction, or, you start having relationships with Amazon that's £1 million business, right? It's £1 million business in its own right. And therefore, there's a different level of contractual knowledge required to negotiate those kind of things and put those deals. There's a different level of financial knowledge required to be able to make sure you don't run out of money, or you fund it, or how you fund it, right? The whole funding piece with that is a skill set. And I think it's like the whole thing of, when you've only run a business that's done £500,000 or £1 million, you think you know a lot, actually. And then because you don't know what you don't know. But as you sit with somebody who's, built a £25 million business, for example, or $25 million business, you sit there and listen to them, and they'll tell you about all the things they had to solve to get to that point that you aren't even aware are going to be an issue right now. And that's, for me, why I think power of community is so good, because you sit with someone like that and you're sitting there going, okay, hadn't thought of that, need to think about that. That's one I've got a plan for. But it's the stuff that, most people don't get granular about, for me, and they're the things that make the difference. The difference between somebody making it and not making it is the granular decisions and the skill you need to develop as a CEO to make those decisions.
Yep.
And I think, plus, you said, look, there's the team and there's a team and the tech. And I think those two are critically, that whole, how do you lead a team that can handle a £1 million business is very different to how do you lead a team that can handle a £5 million worth of business, right? Who do you need to be as a leader to do that is a very interesting journey to go on, I would say. Like, how do you think you've shifted as a leader? Like, how have you changed as a leader since in the time that you've been scaling up?
I think transparency is really important to me, and as we build and bring on the team, that empowering them to be part of the journey is super, super important. And one of the key elements of empowering a team member is allowing them to fail.
Yeah.
They have to fail.
Yeah.
You have to let go. You can't be across everything. So, and if they do fail, when they fail,
yes, because they will. Yep.
Clearly, it is not the strategy to chastise them and berate them and say, what the hell did you do here? Why did you fail? It's completely the opposite, going, okay, right, you failed, right? What have we learned from that? What do we understand from that? How can we make sure that that doesn't happen again? And I'm not saying I wasn't doing any of that, but I'm doing that way more now. So it's the ability to delegate, allow them to fail, learn from those failings. That probably has allowed us to continue on this growth path, because let's say they're failing more often because I'm pushing them to fail more often, because I'm pushing harder, because it doesn't matter to me. Fail, learn, fail, learn, fail, learn. Let's keep doing that, because it means our systems are going to be way more robust. And we're looking at that in every single aspect. So particularly when around that customer interaction, making sure we want to set our stall out from a B2B and a B2C perspective, but we're the best supplier out there. Any issues, we're going to sort that and resolve it really, really quickly.
Yeah.
And part of that process is sometimes the communication isn't quite right, or something doesn't go the way it should do. Fine. What have we done? We'll learn from every time we learn from that. It means that process gets better and better and better. So I think that's a really key learning piece for me, which again, for a lot of entrepreneurs, the ability to let go is very challenging.
Yes.
Because they often want to be, for want of a better phrase, control freaks and across absolutely everything. But when your business is, we're not £100 million business, but clearly when your business is 100 million or 50 million or even 3, 4, 5,
or 10,
you can't be.
You cannot.
It is physically impossible
to
be across everything.
Yes.
So that's a huge learning.
So I kind of want to ask you a question, but I'm a bit nervous, right?
Don't be nervous, Paul.
Because I want to ask you about something that I think is, well, I know for a fact it was a very difficult time for you, but I also know it's something that's happened to probably only 2 people in my entire 21-year career, and it's happened to you. You had to face one of the most challenging team situations ever.
Yeah.
When you lost a member of your team.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's something we don't, in the same way that we don't think it will happen to our family, or we don't think we'll get sick or any of those, it doesn't register that as you build a team out that, somebody might die, right? Like that might happen. And obviously it happened to you. And I just like, how did you deal with that? How did you as a team, come through that? How did you as a leader navigate that? Because there isn't a playbook for that. Nobody tells you how to deal with that. Nobody explains that might even happen, right?
Yeah, you talked about vision and strategy and all of these elements, and at the end of the day, you can't control the uncontrollables. And I came into the office one Monday morning and happened to be the first in, and happened to pick up the phone and learned that Dan had passed away over the weekend, and Dan was becoming he'd been in the business 6, 7 months and was clearly becoming and was going to become a really key part of customer care ops department. There's all sorts of things that go through your mind, because then you know the immediate thing is the loss of that person that you're getting to know and getting to understand and getting to integrate in the team. And then, you know, what is the impact on the business in terms of, we're a man down? What is the impact on everybody else? Super emotional team meeting that morning, as you can imagine, just sitting with everybody and telling them that Dan had died. You can't plan for that.
No.
And then it becomes then personally the challenge then becomes, we need to replace him.
Yeah.
And that sounds, even just saying that sounds wrong.
Yeah.
Because you can't replace him.
No.
But from a business perspective, you're replacing the role.
Well, maybe you need to fill the role. Maybe that's a...
Well, yeah, but yes, I mean, yeah. As I said, the language is really how you think about that and position it. But you've got to fill that hole. And again, you're saying that however you say it doesn't sound right. It doesn't sound right.
No.
And we're a small business. You know, we're still a small business. The team is 7 or 8 of us, and maybe we were a team of 4 or 5 then. So that's the way I build the business and want to build the business is I want people to go to work, and I want to say have a good time. Okay, you might not be having a good time at work, but I want people. Everybody spends a lot of time at work.
Yeah.
And yet you read time and time again and hear time and time again that people wake up on a Monday morning going, oh, gee, I've got to go to work. Like, they hate it. And they're going into a toxic environment. I've got 2 or 3 employees that have come from toxic environments. And you just, some of the stories that come back from the team as to previous businesses that they worked in.
Yeah. It's
a really horrible analogy, but it's like being in a toxic relationship.
Yeah.
And you're sort of going, why didn't you escape? Well, I couldn't really escape. Well, why couldn't you escape? Well, I'm getting paid, and I've got a job, and I've got mortgage, I've got bills to pay and stuff like that. So, I'm trying to build a team where there's some bonding and some relationships and it's not just a 9 to 5.
Yeah.
And therefore, if you're building a team with those foundations, when you lose somebody, then you're losing your family member to some extent. And then you're trying to then navigate your own emotions. You're trying to understand the emotions of the rest of the team. You're trying to help the rest of the team, and everybody is going to deal with it in a different way. You're trying to recruit.
Yeah.
And how do you manage that piece? Because of course the interview question is the interview is going to, well, why? Oh, why? Do you have any questions? Yeah, I do actually. Why are you recruiting for the role?
God.
Or well, sadly, we've just lost a member of staff, and that makes it. And of course, at that point, it's very raw.
Yeah.
So
I hadn't even thought of that.
Yeah, very, very tough, very challenging. We're in football, so we have a collection of signed goalkeeper jerseys that are on the wall, in the office.
It's a great wall.
And I felt it was right to get a shirt and put Herbert on the back, Dan Herbert, and put Herbert on the back, and 38. He was 38 years old, so a young man. So we have and we have some photographs of Dan with the team, and Dan, one of his biggest, very, very early with us. Again, part and parcel of building the team for me is to try and push people, push them to be better people. And there's a photograph of Dan. We had a team outing and went to a climbing wall, and there's a photograph of Dan reaching the top of this climbing wall. And I remember him telling me the next day, he texted all his mates, there's no way you did that. There's no way. So I knew that was a really important thing for him. So we have Dan's shirt framed and on the wall.
Love that.
Alongside, I think he's got Peter Shilton on one side of him. I think he's got Pepe Reina on the other. I think he's got UCL. He's got some legendary goalkeepers surrounding him.
It's a great way to
on the wall of the office.
I think that they're the things when people say, it's all right for you running your own business. So the stuff that people don't realize you go through. They're the things that people don't understand who you need to become in that moment, or just how you need to hold the space to help everyone else get through it, right? And yet at some point in the middle of all of that, you still have to run the business. It's that juxtaposition of that is a tough one to navigate, I think.
Well, it's the balance between your team seeing you as the boss and your team seeing the person behind the boss.
Yeah.
And we've all come across them. We've all worked with lots of different people, and there are some people that completely set the stall out as I am your boss.
Yes.
And there are others that do it in a softer way. And my approach is to attempt to do it in the softer way, because I don't want to be the boss, because I don't think that creates my business the right environment to enable us to achieve everything that I want to achieve and that we want to achieve together.
You're a team, aren't you? I mean, and it's one of the things I'm really passionate about is catching people on language, because when entrepreneurs go, the staff, I'm like, stop saying the word staff. It drives me crazy. It's like, you're a team. Yeah. You're a team, right? You don't, at no point does the manager walk around calling all the players the staff. It's like, that's not how it works. We are a team, and sometimes we win and sometimes we don't, and sometimes there are setbacks, but we, above all else, are a team. That doesn't mean there won't be changes to the team at times, some for terrible reasons and some for the fact that you outgrow some of the people, but fundamentally your commitment is to the team. And I think that's what separates great leaders, is that they, as Nelson Mandela used to say, they put themselves front and center when there's times of difficulty, and when there's times of celebration, they step back and let the team take the credit. And I think that's for me, that's what being, leading in those moments. That's when leadership shows up for me, when stuff like that happens, because it's not the monthly, it's not the regular things, it's the stuff you cannot plan for, no matter what.
And really, really key for me, and I think a takeaway for the listeners is, we check in with the team. We have a team meeting every Monday, and it's a check-in, and it is going around the table, and where are you on a scale of 1 to 10? I'm a 3. Why are you a 3? Well, okay. Some will be completely transparent and honest, and some might say they're a 9 where they're actually a 3. Well, you get to know the team members that are saying that, but check in. Where are you? Check in with. What did you achieve last week? What are your plans this week? And they might be business plans, they might be personal plans, they might be I'm meeting a friend for lunch tomorrow. Whatever, it doesn't matter. But that again has become for me a really important part of the week, is the Monday morning, 10 o'clock, little team check in. We can do it through the week and have a little, but that collectively, because immediately you also then understand, and again, it depends on how honest they want to be or not, but you can immediately see if somebody there's something challenging them, and therefore that also gives both me as the CEO and founder, but also the other team members, the opportunity to, respect that and understand that and respond to that person, perhaps in a different way today, because they can see there's some challenges there, whatever those challenges
it's
are.
Empathy, isn't it? The ENT I often think stands for empathy for me. It's like, you got to have empathy for other people, and we are a human being having an experience, and we go to work, but that doesn't mean we leave. Anybody who ever tells you to leave your emotion at the door, in my opinion, is like such an idiot, because you can't. It's a human being, and you bring your emotions, good, bad, and you're going to have ups and downs, and we're going to have rows with partners a day before we go to the work. It's all of that. And I think it goes back to your point about transparency. It's like, if you can be transparent with your team because you know that they won't judge you, point number 1. Point number 2 is they will support you if you're struggling with something. If you create that safe space, as Google talk about, there is a supportive, safe space for me to, psychological safety exists. I can say I'm struggling with something, then I'm gonna be far more I'm going to be far more productive actually and supported because I know that if I'm struggling with something, I can ask for help. And I think for me, that's the difference between great places to work and, as you said, toxic cultures. Toxic cultures, you cannot be transparent. You have to have a mask on. You cannot show that you're struggling or there's any level of vulnerability because people use it against you. Whereas actually great teams are, look, 100% transparent. Sometimes we're up, sometimes we're down, sometimes we're just, we're where we are. But I think that whole kind of it's the A and it is acceptance. You got to accept people for who they are, and some days they're great, and some days they're
But
not.
it has to, and let's not be any under any illusions. It has to come from me as well. It has to come from the leader as well.
Yeah.
If we were asking if we're going around the table and asking the team to be where are you?
Yeah.
Then it's wrong with me, and you see this in other leaders. It would be wrong with me to go, oh well, I'm a 10 today.
Yep.
Geez, why are you lots? Like that's just not the right approach.
Yep.
But you see it.
Yep.
Because the leader has the perception that if they say they're a 9, then they're not the right leader, or they're weak, or they're not, or they're showing their vulnerability.
Yeah.
So what? So what? That makes a better team. And again, I go into sport. I'm massively cautious. I've been involved in sport for 30 years, and you see the dynamic. And I've been in dressing rooms and seen dynamics of top level athletes and teams.
Right.
And the dynamic and the understanding is because they understand that he's vulnerable in that, and that gel that brings them together.
Love it.
So I think that's another key learning, really.
So really excited because you're going to be speaking about your scale-up journey. I think you're going to be teaching your FINDIT framework.
I am.
Which we haven't got time to go into right now. I'm sure maybe at some point down the road we do a different podcast just about the FINDIT framework. But you're going to be teaching the FINDIT framework at the Scale-Up Summit. So hopefully by the time this podcast comes out, there are still a few tickets left because we're nearly sold out at the time of recording this. I know all the VIP tickets have gone, so we are down to the last few tickets for this year's Scale-Up Summit. But you want to be sharing. What are you going to be sharing in that presentation? Because I think one of the things I love about you is that you're very raw, very real about what works, what doesn't work, but you're on this mission to kind of help people become a category king, right? Like you're on a mission about that.
I am.
So what are you going to be sharing? What are you going to be sharing in that presentation?
So in essence, so the success that we've seen, the success that I've seen is building this category king business, as you said. And yes, it's a super, super niche product because it's products that you basically make your goalkeeper gloves grippy, stop them smelling, keep them clean in the space of goalkeeping. Soccer is a global sport. So we have the opportunity. Yes, it's niche, but we're in a global marketplace. And there are many, many, many examples of category kings around the world. So it might be a Netflix category king of streaming. It might be an Uber. It might be an Amazon. So there's lots of opportunities, and that's great. But what I want to explore is how can you be a category king within your business, whatever your business is.
Right.
And that's a framework of 6 steps under the FINDIT framework. So first of all, it's frame the problem. What's the pain? What are you trying to solve here? What is that issue? With us, it was trying to solve the pain of the fact that gloves are wearing away. I frame the problem. I identify the market opportunity. Is there a market? You might have solved this amazing problem, but actually you look and there's absolutely zero opportunity.
There's no demand.
There's no demand.
There's no demand.
There's
You've
nothing
created this amazing mousetrap, but nobody has a problem with mice at all. They all have a problem with snakes.
Right.
It's not relevant.
And again, I drop into Dragon's Den every now and again, and you see entrepreneurs presenting a product, and you think,
it's a great product, but there's no problem. Yeah.
So that's the end for me is then niche down.
Yep.
If you've solved the problem, you've identified the market, then niche down, because if you're in that niche, you've got an opportunity to really drive your own pathway within that niche also. And one of the things you want to do is differentiate. That's the D. So differentiate.
Yep.
I've solved the problem. I found that there is an opportunity. I found my niche. Yeah, but I need to be maybe in that niche. Maybe there's something similar. Okay, how do I create a different reason for the end consumer to buy that product? And then the last 2 really are, as you continue to evolve and look at the opportunities here, is innovation. So for me, that also can come slightly further down the line, that if you're driving a category king business and you're not innovating, then very quickly people are going to take your product, iterate it, change it slightly, and suddenly you're going to be, the category commoners are coming to get you. They're coming to get your crown. So you have to be really super, super, super key on innovation. And then the final T of the FINDIT framework is test and validate. So you've gone through all this process. It's fantastic. Yes, I've got the product. I think I've got the market. Yeah, I've innovated. I've got a point of difference. I'm going to throw it on the marketplace. Well, if you haven't tested and validated anything, you've just spent $100,000 on a container of product that's going to hit the marketplace. And hang on a minute, I haven't tested it. I didn't realize that this doesn't happen or this was something. So for me, it's a really key structure that you can apply to any level of business. And I'll leave you with one final kind of analogy to bring it down from a Netflix or an Uber. Bring it down to me, a local business, and you and I sat in this cafe the other day. I have a local business near me called Blake's. They are a cafe. However, they set their stall out to be the category king in cinnamon buns.
Yes.
So on the side of their van, it says the cinnamon bun place.
I saw that. It's brilliant.
Everybody in the area talks about Blake's cinnamon buns. They don't talk about Blake's as being a cafe. It's a super cafe. They talk about Blake's cinnamon buns. So they've used the FINDIT framework. They've looked at this niche opportunity. They've niched down from baking to right down to buns to a cinnamon bun. And they've used that as an opportunity, as the hook, as the thread to pull people into their business, to their brand, to their products. And of course, what you do, yes, you go and buy a cinnamon bun, but actually the reality is you go and have a cup of coffee and you go and have some lunch and et cetera, et cetera.
You have an experience. You have a moment.
You have an experience. So, anybody who's listening, and again at Scale Up Summit, anybody who's in the room who, when I start talking about how Uber have become a category king, go, but I can't do that. Well, actually, you can do that if you apply this framework, because anybody can do it.
Well, I think, two things. One is in the book, Good to Great, there's a question there that I always think most entrepreneurs don't spend enough time answering, which is what can you be the best in the world at? And world can be, by the way, your region, your market, your town, your country, all globally. Like, you are clearly the best in the world of creating amazing glue for goalkeeping gloves that makes them sticky, right? You can be the best in the world at that. And I think that's always an interesting question. The second thing is I breathed a huge sigh of relief with tea because I'm worried that you were going to talk about tariffs. So it's okay that we missed that. So I'm glad we dodged that one because that would have been a bullet I wasn't really ready for. So anyway, e-commerce, the US tariffs could have very much derailed everything, right?
Could have done.
So one final question for me, really, because I love this conversation. From your perspective, what do you think is the difference between a business and a grown-up business? What's the difference for you? What's your definition of a grown-up business?
So that's a great question. And we're going through that phase, and we talk about it at the moment. The phase that we're in is going from spotty teenager to young adult. We joke about it in the business. We talk about it in the business. And what does that mean? For me, it goes back to team. Goes back to systems, goes back to vision. The best analogy for me is because we've ticked those boxes, you're in a situation now that the numbers that we're doing 12 months ago, as a team and as a business, we were super, super stressed, pushed to the limits, going home going, wow, I can't believe we've done those numbers. We're doing double those numbers now, going, actually, we've got a load of capacity here because we're super efficient. And that for me is showing that we've moved from to become this grown-up business in a way that I can physically see it. That, okay, give us another 6 months and we're silly period and we'll all be pushed again, but we'll be doing 3-4 times the numbers in that period. But that's that for me. Yeah, we're out of the shorts and we're into the adult. Whatever you want.
You're on the verge of heading into the Premier League. Is that where we are to use the sports analogy?
Maybe we have.
Division 1, maybe.
We could do the Wrexham whole Wrexham.
No, we haven't got time for that.
We haven't got time for that.
We haven't got. Yeah, no, we can't afford the royalties. So, listen, thank you so much. Look, I appreciate you allowing me to ask some questions. I think it's been I'm really excited about the story so far. I would love for you to come back maybe in a year and give us an update on that, because I think it'll be exciting to see where the business is there, and definitely update us on the nationals of like what's happened with that, because I think that's a really exciting journey as well that's on its way to 7 figures, really, absolutely. And We'll make sure we drop all the links to you. I think if anyone wants to find out more about how to become a category king, how to really kind of build that e-commerce brand, they should follow you on LinkedIn. Definitely, they should follow Gloveglu for sure on TikTok and YouTube, and we'll drop all those links in the socials. What would you say to somebody who's really got a product and they're still nervous about taking it out and blowing it up? What's the one piece of advice you'd give them to finish off this episode?
You've got to do it.
Just got to do it.
Just do it. I think for me, there's you can procrastinate. You can just dive in. I mean, my very first job that I had was at Head, and I came in as this little marketing exec, and the marketing director left within 6 weeks, and basically said to me, "There's the deep end. Go and jump in it. You're either going to sink or you're going to swim." And I think that's the philosophy I've taken on. And maybe that's just me personally, but if you really got a passion to do it, you've just got to do it. There is no shortcut. You've just got to jump into that water. But
I would say, though, the only thing I would carry though is jump in, start swimming. But if you've never swum before, get a coach to teach you how to swim. Definitely your survival odds go up significantly.
Yeah, might help if you've got a rubber ring on the side, or a coach, or a rope, or something.
Yeah, anything,
just in case. Yeah, it's true.
Well, Sherratt, thanks for being on the Grown Up Business Podcast, man. It's been awesome. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks.
That concludes this episode of the Grown Up Business Podcast. I hope that got you fired up and ready to grow. The key thing, though, is to remember you get paid on what you get done. So write down the top 3 actions from the show and make sure that you implement those in the next 72 hours. Hey, and while you're at it, make sure you click the links and the resources below this episode to claim free growth resources to help you build the business you desire and deserve. I'll see you on the next episode.